So what is the service? Service is Kubernetes service is to expose the pods outside of the cluster. To expose the pods outside of the cluster, right? Or so Kubernetes service is used to expose pods outside the cluster. So we have two types of Kubernetes service. So what is that? Cluster IP, NodePort, load balancer. So we need to create a service manifest file to expose the pods. So today, so yesterday what we did, guys, yesterday what we did, we created a manifest file for the pod, right? So Kubernetes K8s manifest pod manifest file. What is that? Pod manifest file. So what are the four options, guys? So three hyphens. So one is API version, right? So API version. The second one is kind. Kind in means. So kind is nothing but a. So what you are trying to create? You are trying to create a pod, or you are trying to create a service. You are trying to create a pod, or you are trying to create a service. Then metadata, data of the data, metadata. So metadata, then spec. Spec is nothing but a specifications, right, guys? So this is the syntax of the this is the a syntax for the normal file. Something like if it is a pod, you can use the pod. If it is a service, you can use the service. Why service? You manually by default pods are, if you create a pod, if you create a pod, it will run the pod, and it will not expose outside of the cluster. It will not expose outside of the cluster. What is the default behavior? So the default behavior is so something like a it will it will expose it will expose guys, it will expose only inside the cluster, only inside the cluster only, inside the cluster. But I want to expose the expose 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 to outside. I want to expose to expose parts outside the cluster. So how you can do it? You can do it by using the service. You can do it by using the service. Service have three types of services. We have three types of Kubernetes services. So one is, what is that, guys? One is cluster IP. So cluster IP, it will expose inside the cluster, so you want to hit the www dot, for example, www.html. So www.facebook.com. So this is a outside, right? The end user will get the pages. But if you use the cluster IP, so if you use the cluster IP, so we will show the pages or not, guys? So we will not show the pages because of the cluster IP will expose only inside the pod, so inside the cluster only. But so we need to expose the outside. The pods will expose outside, because of then only we can see the application. Then only we can see the website, right? So what is the I want to expose the outside. What are the services are there? NodePort service, NodePort and load balancer. So what is that, guys? Load balancer, load balancer. So these are the two services. So we can expose the pods outside. We can outside the cluster. So node port and the service port. Node port is nothing but a so whatever you are providing, right? That part only it will expose out. So if you use the load balancer, so something like load balancer having the 3 or 4 pods are running. The pods, if you hit that pods, if you hit that www.facebook.com, it will hit any of the server. It will hit any of the server. For example, so these all are the pods. These pods are these all pods are deployed on the Facebook application. So for example, this is the load balancer. So this is the a load a balancer. What is this, guys? This is a A load balancer. So what is load balancer meaning, guys? So what is the meaning of load balancer? So what is the meaning of load balancer? It will load the, it will share the load, it will share the load on, so it will share the load, right? So for example, the end users, sorry guys. So these are the end users. For example, these are the end users. They are written the www.facebook.com. What is that, guys? They hit the www.facebook.com, www.facebook.com. So once they hit, right, it will automatically go to the load balancer. It will automatically the hit go to the load balancer and will share the load. For example, so now this pod is, now this pod is having heavy load, something like 500 people are hitting this pod. So right, so then it will check and it will share the load to the next one. So if something like that pod also having the load, then it will move to the other pod. This is nothing but a load balancer. So for example, NodePort. So NodePort is nothing but a particular container, particular pod you want to provide the outside access. So on that node, on that pod only we can, so we can to provide the node port. Node port means we can access the outside of the network, just only one container, one pod. Guys, now you understood the difference between node port and the load balancer. If you want to expose only one pod, you can use the node port. If you want to expose multiple pods via load balancer, so you can use the load balancer service type, Kubernetes load balancer service type. Guys, now you understood? Guys, got it or no?
Expose more than one.
Yeah, so something like so in this port, in this service, you can use node port. So in this pod also, for example, in this pod also you can use the node port. Yeah, we can use. So number of containers, right? Every container create a node port service. Okay, every pod. Yeah. So load balancer. So we need to we need to write a service manifest file, service manifest YAML file to expose the pod. What is that, guys? Guys, tell me. So
Yeah,
we need to,
YAML file.
yeah. So we need to, write service manifest YAML. We need to write service manifest YAML to expose the pods, to expose the pods. So the same way how you created pod, right? How you created pod via YAML file. The same way you can create the manifest file for the service also. So we can create the manifest file the service. So what is that? So we can use 3 dots, 3 hyphens. Then yeah. So we can use this one, guys. Okay. So we can copy this one. Yeah. So API version. What is the API version? API version is V1. So API version is a V1 kind equal to, what is that, guys? Kind equal to service. Yesterday, so kind equal to pod. We are trying to create a pod. We are trying to create a service. So metadata. So what is the metadata of the service? So what is the metadata of the service? What is that, guys? Git. I already uploaded git. Guys, are you watching the GitHub while setting the EKS? Guys,
No, sir.
so how you deployed our EKS cluster setup? So I already told you, right, guys, many more times. So this is the our GitHub URL. So 1 second. Yeah. This is our GitHub URL, guys. If you go to the Kubernetes, these are the Kubernetes setup. Kubernetes setup. I pasted in the chat, guys. If you click directly, it will go to the document. So like AWS EK setup. This is the setup configuration file. You can use this setup configuration file to set up the ECLAS cluster, and the deployment file. So the deployment file is API apps v1 deployment. So this is the deployment, not. So yesterday what we created the pod, simple pod. So API v1 kind equal to pod, metadata web server, spec equal to container, container name equal to web server, image equal to nginx, port equal to container port. Right? Just we created the port. So we created the port. So you can see. So this is my Tomcat service.aml. What is this, guys? This is just a service. This is just a service manifest file. This is just a service manifest file. Yeah, API version v1. Yeah, API version v1 kind equal to service metadata. So metadata name equal to my Tomcat SVC, and the spec equal to cluster IP. What is this, guys? This is the cluster IP. So if you want to change it to NodePort, you can change it to NodePort. I will tell you. Okay. So this is the a service manifest file. What is this, guys? So this is the a service manifest file. I want to connect to the AWS. Sign into the console. Sign into the console. Venkatappavan Swargam. Sign into the console. Venkatappavan Swargam. Pavan. Yep, guys. You already stopped, Pavan? I'm connecting to the putty. This is the IP address of the server. Appearance, change settings. 18. Okay. SSH, auth, credentials, browse. EK is 21 batch. Ubuntu. Yep, guys. So what is that, guys? ls. Yeah, simple pod.aml file is already created. Just I'm creating simple svc aml.aml file. So I'm trying to create a simple service file. So what is that service file, guys? So this is the simple service file. So what is the service name? Okay. Yeah, I want to change this. Let's API version v1 kind service metadata. So what is the metadata for the simple server, guys? One second. Cat simple pod.aml. So I want to expose this pod, right? What is the container name, guys? Web server. So what is the name of the container? A web server. Yeah, guys, one second. I want to copy this code. Yeah. So what is this, guys? What is the pod? Pod name equal to web server. What is the pod name? Web server SVC. For example, what is the name of the web server? SVC. So what is the cluster IP? What is the selector? Selector equal to a web server. Selector equal to here web server, right? So how, which pod we need to expose? This pod. This pod we need to expose, right? Yeah, copy. Yeah, so API version v1, kind service, metadata, name equal to web server SCC. SVC, we want to create the service name called as SVC, spec cluster IP, and the selector a web server. So selector web server target equal to 8080. Let's, so this is, so how you can create, guys? Guys, to display the existing SVC services. So how you can check it? You get to display the existing services, kubectl get SVC. SVC means so service name. Yeah. So by default we have a one cluster IP services. So kubectl, I want to apply this one. How you can apply? You can apply by using the kubectl apply -f. What is the manifest SVC manifest file, guys? Simple svc.ml. I'm applying the, yeah. So error, validating simple SSC error, validating data, invalid, missing required field, port in, missing required a field, right? VI simple svc.aml. So API server, API version, kind service, metadata, name, web server SCC, spec type, cluster IP, selector, web server, ports, port to target port to 8080, port to ports to target port to 8080. So kind service API version, kind service metadata, name, spec, spec type, NodePort, selector, selector, the pod label, right? So let me give this pod label, selector, what is the pod label, guys? App, web server, selector ports, hyphen port, yeah, we missed the port 80, port 80, target, target port 8080. Yeah, now let's check. Yeah, you see, so the issue with app, guys, the issue with the app port. So like kubectl get svc. Yeah, you see, so 15 seconds ago we created the port, so we created the cluster IP. So cluster IP, right? So cluster IP is within the, so within the cluster only. I want to create a outside the cluster. So outside the cluster, right? So what you need to go, you need to go to the simple svc.acc.
Change
Then
type.
yeah, change type equal to, what is that, guys?
NodePort.
Yes, very good. What is that? Node port. I want to expose this pod to the outside of the cluster. I want to expose this pod outside of the cluster. kubectl apply -f simple svc.aml. Yeah. kubectl get svc. Get svc. Now you understood, right? So web server svc is created. Web server svc is created with node port. Now let's check. Now let's check, guys. So meanwhile, before we need to expose those, right? Security. Yeah, let's try. So where it created kubectl get pods -o wide. Yeah, where it created 186. So it created 186. Yeah, this is the public IP, right? HTTP :/port kubectl get pods. Yeah, pod is running. Pod is running. Kubectl get svc web server node port also. This is the node port, right? Okay, 36092 30692. Is the public IP address 10.1.1.0.62. Let's check. key. So we need to enable the node port number in security group of a worker node in which our pod is running. So let's check, guys, where the pod is running. 192.15.86. 15.86. So here 15.86. Yes, the go to the security. All. So yep. So in this security group, inbound rules, edit inbound rule. So add all traffic 000. Save the rules. Let's check now, guys. EC2 set instances. It will get the IP address http://:30.962 30962. Hey, why it is not enabling? 80 NodePort web server SVC. Pod level equal to web server only, right? NodePort public IP. Node port number is 30962. Node public IP address. Node public IP address we only took. What is the issue? 30962. Enable node port number and security group of worker node in which our pod is running. Yes. Enable. Service cluster IP selector app node port pod image container node port ports target port node port also we specified, right? Let's try to delete, guys. kubectl delete all hyphen all. Yeah. Now kubectl get pods, no pods running. kubectl get nodes. Yeah. Now let's kubectl apply -f simple pod.aml cat simple pod.aml. So API version v1 kind pod metadata name web server, spec container, web server, nginx, container port 80. Is right. Ports, container port to container port to container port we can give 8080. Yeah. Let's try. va simple pod.aml container port we can give 8080 also it will work, right? wq port to target port to 8080, right? Yeah. Now let's keep ctl, apply simple pod.aml, keep ctl, apply simple svc.aml. Yeah. kubectl get pods -o wide. It will get where it created. Okay, so 15186 is created. So then kubectl get svc. Yeah, NodePort also created 31779. 31779. So where it created, create under the 15.186. So 15.186. 1 second, guys. What is this? 15.186, huh? 15.186. Yeah, 15.186. Go to the security and security groups. IPv4. Edit. Bonds. Add rule. Custom TCP. All TCP. Or all traffic. Custom. All traffic, right? All TCP. Custom TCP. It's already there, right? All there, all traffic 0002. Save the rules. We have made the changes, right? Why it is 31779? 31779. 3177. Why, guys? Why it is not showing? We exposed the port, right? Already. One second. Let's try with the other. cat simple pod.aml API version correct kind correct pod metadata spec containers name web server image nginx latest ports that's a container port 8080 NodePort, right? Let's create a pod svc dot aml pod svc dot aml. What is that, guys? So this is the pod, right? So this is the pod. Yeah, this is the pod metadata web server spec container port 8080 web server spec metadata name spec container web server latest. And yeah, guys, I'm creating here only. So hyphen the next service web service. Yeah, API version v1 kind service metadata name web server svc spec type ClusterIP selector web server web server selector web server only. Label, right? Labels. Yeah, maybe that is the issue. Okay, once again we can select the metadata. Metadata name equal to web server. Name, right? Name web server. Then we can select the labels. Labels app equal to web server app. So here selector insert selector selector app, right? App colon web server. What is the selector, guys? Selector is web server app. Let's try this.
Sir, 1 minute.
Hmm.
Above spelling mistake, web server, app.
Web server above, no?
Above, sir, above.
Yeah, label equal to web server. Insert web server app port 8080 target ports. So target port, so we can give the space 80. Let's check. Delete everything. So it will delete everything. kubectl apply -f. What is that? Simple pod svc.aml. Yeah, you see, created both pod and service in the one AML file, right? Let's check kubectl get pods -o wide -o wide 50.68 50.68, I think this one. So 50.68 here it created here. Go to the security groups, inbound IP of all outbound all traffic, right? All. Okay, now let's check. So what is the IP address, guys? IC address of the server, EC2 instances, details. So this is the server, right? Is the public IP address. HTTP colon. So what is the node port? Node port equal to, what is the port number, guys? kubectl get svc. Only cluster IP, node port, right?
Sir, you type a cluster IP, sir, type.
That is the reason. Maybe let's check. What is that? Node port.
Oh.
Again, you need to created -o wide. So 15.158. Now here created here. Let's check the get svc. What is the node port number? 31064. 31064. Now it's created here. What is this? Security. Created, right? Now let's check 108 only. HTTP colon // colon. So what is the node port IP, guys? 31064. 31064. Why it is not getting, guys? Version pod metadata name labels app web server app only. Nginx, right? Instead of Nginx, let's try with my images, guys. So we created correctly, but Let's connect this one, guys. My Tomcat 9. App also my Tomcat 9. Cat 9. Container name also my Tomcat 9. My Tomcat 9. This is service. Let's try this, guys. It's creating, guys, but the issue with only kubectl get pods created -o wide. kubectl get svc. Yeah, NodePort also created with 3104 second. So where we missed here? I think so here only, right? How to disable the firewall on Ubuntu 16, right? Maybe this is the issue. Let me check. Node, it's not affect on the node, but why it is not showing where it's created? It's created under the 50.68. 50.68. The issue with only what is the node port, guys? 30126 colon 30126. Yeah, the issue with only nginx, guys. Guys, understood? Hello, guys. Now your
Yes, sir.
application is applied, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. There may be an issue with the nginx. That's the reason it is not showing. Okay. So it will show, guys. It will show. Let's try with. Yeah. So the pod, you see, right? The label of the pod. So we need to provide the label of the. If this label of the label name will be a here the selector, guys. So means you need to assign the node port IP address to the which pod, this pod. So which pod, guys? So this pod. There might be an issue with the nginx. That's the reason it is not showing, guys. Tomorrow we will resolve that issue. Okay. Now you
Okay.
understood? So you can create a one file with all. So we'll show you guys. So going forward, you will know. So everything will be one file. Everything will create in the one file. How you can separate this pod and service by using the three
Three
hyphens.
dots.
Three hyphens we can separate by the three hyphens. Guys, got it?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. So we'll continue from tomorrow, guys. Now you understood, right? Yeah, I will add this cat pod svc.aml. So this is, yeah, guys, I'm uploading in the this, guys. What is this? Kubernetes. Add a file, create a file. What is the name? Pod svc.aml.
ML.
Pod svc.aml. Yeah. So this is the pod file, guys. Okay. Pod and svc both are combining in one application. This is the pod and svc file. So I will upload the only pod and only svc files, guys. Okay. You guys check it here. So this is the Kubernetes, a document. You guys can go through this and create. Okay. Now you guys understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I will upload the recording, guys. Okay. Now you see, so if you use the NodePort, our application will be accessed via outside. Our application will be accessed via outside. For example, you deployed a just we install the Tomcat server. So we want to deploy our application in the Tomcat. So something like colon 8. What is that, guys?
Port number 88.
No, not 30
126.
30126. 30126 paste slash lab 6 na 126 colon http colon double slash 126 slash, guys, slash 30 na
30126.
30126 slash lab 6a. I think no, not this. So we'll show you tomorrow, guys. We'll show you tomorrow. So our application is deployed lab 6a na lab 6a na. Yeah, you see, now you understood. So your application is deployed on where? Your application is deployed on the this. Your application is deployed on the which pod, guys? Which pod? So kubectl get pods, get pods. Now you understood, guys. So for example, so if you delete the pod, it automatically pod created or not, guys? It will not created, right? Tomorrow I will show you. Okay, we'll continue from tomorrow, guys.